Hello everybody and welcome back to the channel. I recently just purchased a Garmin GPS map 66i that has the SOS function. So when I'm traveling out of cell phone range, at least I have a map and some emergency services I could contact in case of an emergency, obviously. And I ended up, this has got great battery. It's got hours and hundreds of hours, over 200 hours if you can go into expedition mode where you're saving energy. But when I'm traveling on the trails, it's kind of hard to read the GPS. So I ended up buying the cradle for it. It is a power cradle. It's something I'm going to install today. It's going to get mounted here into the handlebar area down here. And it is powered by USB, and the Honda does not have a USB. So on Amazon, I ended up purchasing this little power adapter that comes from your battery that has two USB ports. So I'm going to use one for the permanent GPS cradle, and the other one I'm not sure if I'm going to keep up here by the gas tank in case I want to charge another item like a phone, but that would then expose the 5-volt power source to water, which I don't think would be too good to do. So I may just tape it off and keep it as a dead dummy and not have to worry about water getting into it and shorting out. So to do the project, I am doing all the tools I have on the bike, which is I highly recommend. I have a tool set for my F750GS. All the tools in my toolkit are for that particular bike. I work on that bike with those tools, and the same thing with the Honda. I have all the tools here. Every time I work on it, change tires, do whatever I have to do, I use the tools that I have with the bike. That way, if you're broken down in the woods, you have all the tools necessary to fix it. Otherwise, when I do a job and I'm missing something, I will add it. I have this Nelson's Rigs fender bag. It has the fork spoons in it, along with a spare inner tube and a patch kit if necessary. So today what we're going to do is remove the seat. And to do that, I have an AXP rack, which is an amazing rack. It has these grab holes, so if your bike falls over, it gives you a place to grab onto. So I just need to remove the two bolts on the side, which will allow me to just pivot the rack up slightly. So when they're out, that frees the seat, so it allows me to slide the seat slightly backward to unclip the latch here in the front, and it's an amazing setup. It just slides out. After that, we are going to remove this panel here. So once this is off, that's okay. There's a bolt down here which we have to take off, and then under the seat there's a little clip you push in and out to remove, and then that allows the access of the battery behind this panel. So let me get set up, and we'll get to work and show you a little bit of an installation here. Okay, so the first thing that we're going to do here is install the handlebar bracket clamp, which is basically a U-bolt with the clamp with the ball that's going to mount on your handlebars. Decide where you want to put it. You can go anywhere you want. I figure the best place for me to put it is just underneath your chin guard on your handlebar, in between the triple tree and then where all your brakes and everything work. And that way it's pretty much going to be in the center of my positioning. And Garmin, I thought was metric, but apparently they're not. So therefore, I don't have a tool to tighten this, but this is going to be the only imperial bolts on this bike. This is a 7/16. So I'm just going to use a small socket here and tighten up the nylon lock nuts onto the bolt. Clamp it in position on my handlebar. You want to make sure that the nylon part clears the U-bolt, otherwise it won't be locked. It will just be the bolt in place. And I think that's pretty tight. I don't think it's going to go anywhere now. I might just want to move it just a hair back forward. There we go. That gives me a lot of clearance. So what I've done here is installed it, if I can get an angle, maybe it's better on this side. I've installed the ball right here. So if you can see, it's clamped down in between the triple tree and the hand guards. Perfect little spot. I've got a lot of clearance in between the foam guard and my clutch cable. So this is the power unit. There's 2 pins down here to charge the GPS. This is the power cable, which I'm going to eventually route down through the fairing. And on this side here is I have the bracket with the toggle clamp here to keep it in set. It just clears. So I think this would be a good setup. Gives a little bit of support. It's not in the way of my speedometer. So I think that's a pretty good setup right here. Okay, so now that I've got the mount where I want it, we're going to start taking off the bolts so we can remove the seat and the side panel. These are usually on quite tight. I have them with Loctite too, so a little tight to get off sometimes. They're not too bad. It's pretty easy. I actually love this AXP rack that goes with my skid plate I have. It is just wonderful, heavy duty. And it has multiple slots to tie down any luggage you may have on the rack. I have my Nelson's rig bag on here, and I love that bag. It expands, and I just can't. I'm not being paid by any of these companies to promote their name. I just usually mention stuff that I feel is high quality. I did buy a tail bag off of Amazon, and it wasn't that expensive, and it lasted maybe 2 outings. It was vinyl, and then it ended up all ripping where the strap tie downs were, and that was it. It was finished. So like I said here, now just to get my seat off, I lift up the rack and remove these 2 little bushings. So once the rack moves, I could take the seat, slide it back, take out that lock, lift it up, and the seat comes out without having to remove the rack completely. Next step. Oh, that one's tight, do I? Just remove this bolt. That Loctite was on good. Once that's done, there's a grommet here. And the pin. There's a pin here. You push down. Make me a liar. There we go. Stupid things. So this is the little pin. You push the center in, which then frees up the splines that push out. And then you have to reset it. When you want to reset it, you pull the whole pin right out completely. And then that way you put it in, you push it in, and it squeezes it out. So the side cover's off. We're going to take the other side cover off as well here, just for the fact I want to pass some wires, and also gives me more access to the other battery terminal. So that's a 1, 2, 3 screws should be able to take it off. I haven't taken it off in a while, so let's see if I'm right. Hopefully it comes off nice. I know at one point I had to straighten out some brackets because I had a good crash and bent the radiator reservoir guard a little bit. Right, and then over here, I don't know if you can see it, there's another push pin here. You pull that off and this cover should come right off. Hopefully that comes out easier as well, because the original one I broke and I changed it with my own that I bought on Amazon, so it's a bit bigger for the hole, but it still goes in and works quite well. Just a tighter fit. You have one good crash on this and you're done. There we go. So here's the other push pin. And believe it or not, there was a second one down here too. So 2 push pins here. I thought there was only one, but there's one here, one here. That's why I had a hard time. This little bracket here is not very strong. I ended up smashing it in when I fell one day, but no big deal. So what we're going to do here is I'm going to route the cable, make sure there's lots of clearance. So here doesn't seem to be a problem. So I'm going to come inside here, route it through here. Actually, instead of going through there, I'm going to come down here in behind and follow the wiring harness that goes to the battery and see how much length I actually have. So what we're going to do, get some tie wraps, and I am actually going to tie wrap the wire here to the handlebar. Sorry if I'm in the way of the camera. And we'll tilt this up a little bit, move this in. I'm going to tie this wire up here, make sure there's enough slack so it's nice and loose. Play. And that seems to be enough play there, so I'm going to put a tie wrap for the wire here. There's a little hole. This bracket's probably for the rally when you have a fairing, because it looks like there's supposed to be a clip there. So I'm just going to make sure there's enough wire clearance here. So I've got it tie wrapped up here on the handlebar. So I got a lot of slack here. I got slack here. So if I'm turning my handlebar, it's not going to bind up. And I have it tie wrapped right here on this bracket. I follow down here along the wiring harness. And what I'll do is I'm going to put a tie wrap here on the wiring harness as well. Or a zip tie. I know tie wrap is a brand name like Kleenex, but we all say tie wrap. But let's stay generic. We'll call it a zip tie. That's that one. And that will come up here by the battery. And then we'll put one more here. Well, we'll just trim the ends. So here's your battery. Looks like it's two 8mm terminals, or if you happen to have a slot or Phillips screwdriver, you should be able to loosen that. So my mic crapped out, so I'm doing a supplementary auto overlap. And what I've done here is installed my power supply from 12 volts to my 5-volt generator for the USB here already onto the battery. My plus and minus terminals are connected to the battery and tightened down. I've already taped off my blank USB port that I don't plan to use, and I've taped up my USB for the Garmin cradle to the output of the other port so no water can get into. And at the same time, my USB cradle wire has been tie wrapped to the wiring harness through the bike, up the side with a lot of slack, so that way there's no binding on the steering column for the cradle. And you could see that the GPS is on, so I am getting my power directly from the bike now instead of the battery on the GPS. So this could be removed and used anywhere, anytime, and at least I can have it charged while riding the motorcycle if I want to go hiking or anything to that matter. It's solidly mounted and it's in a good location. So this is the bike with all the covers off, and the next step here will be to reinstall the covers, and that's a pretty easy task. We're going to put the front side one in, put the bolts back in. You can use blue Loctite if you want to use blue Loctite, but really it's not necessary. and at the same time the clips will go into the front. There's two clips that go into the front where the ECM and radiator reservoir is. Some of the bolts, best thing to do is line them up, put them in loosely first before you do it, because if you're like me and you off-road a lot of these little mounting areas sometimes get bent. The biggest problem I had was the lower part of the front fairing by the radiator. It's quite a thin piece of metal down here. So when I was trying to line up that bolt, it took a little while, but eventually I got it in. What's also nice about the job is that I really don't have to worry about water. I could have fused the little transformer, but I figure the draw from 12 to 5 volts isn't enough to warrant putting a fuse in between the battery and the little mini transformer. There's not enough current to have any shorted out problems. One thing, though, you do have to remember, though, is that the cradle has always got a 5-volt continuous source now on it. So you should be careful about what you put there as water. So once all the panels are on, we're going to just assemble the bike and finish up the project. Okay, so all the panels are back on, the seat's back on, the bolts here for my rack are back on. Everything's hidden underneath, taped up, wired up, nice and clean up here, GPS mount. So I hope this little how-to video helps somebody out there. I'll post a link below on where I bought the module on Amazon, and let you know on any future projects. Thanks for watching my channel. Bye-bye.